I'm Kalila Reynolds and welcome to Taking Stock. We're bringing you all the latest business news and telling you how it will affect you and your money. But before we get started this week, I've got an announcement. Our new newsletter is out, so head over to takingstock-ja.com to subscribe. You can click the link in the description box below. I also have a giveaway coming up, so make sure you watch this video to the end. Now come on, let's get this money.
First up, it's like PayPal but for the Caribbean. The Trinidad-based Wipay is now in 7 Caribbean countries, and with one foot already in Jamaica, they're awaiting regulatory approval to launch full service. We'll find out more from CEO Aldwyn Wayne. And later, the analysts weigh in on the latest market developments. Pulse has been a hot stock recently, and movie theaters have been given the green light to operate for 2 weeks. Can Palace recoup its massive losses? We'll discuss.
But first, here's What's Hot, brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers, your best interest at heart.
Energy Minister Favour Williams has recommended that JPS include how much it charges customers to cover losses from electricity theft as a line item on your light bill. Losses due to theft are factored into rates set by the Office of Utilities Regulation (OUR). But the issue was again the centre of debate last week, reigniting anger from the public. In addressing concerns, the Director of Communications and Customer Experience at JPS, Winsome Callum, pointed out that 26% of electricity generated is lost, mostly due to theft. She says approximately 20% of that loss goes to customers, with JPS absorbing the rest. But JPS says this specific charge is not reflected on bills. Minister Williams says customers should know exactly what they're paying for. In the meantime, the Energy Ministry also released a joint statement last week with JPS following a meeting with the Cabinet. According to the statement, both parties have agreed that more will be done to address customers' concerns about high light bills. Cinemas, playhouses and theatres were allowed to reopen on Sunday, July 5 for 14 days. The entertainment venues had been closed since March to limit the spread of COVID-19. Among the new rules is that no more than 60% of the seating capacity should be used. The rules also apply to other venues used to host plays such as school auditoriums and community centres. Palace Amusements, which has reportedly lost some $300 million due to the lockdown, is set to open Wednesday with their popular half-off deal. Meanwhile, as of July 2, dining is again allowed in restaurants. However, no more than 4 people should be at each table, and the restaurant can't be more than half full. Still on COVID-19 news, visitors planning to come to Jamaica on or after July 10 from high-risk areas will be required to upload their coronavirus test results to the Visit Jamaica website. The results must be no more than 7 days old from the expected date of arrival. So far, the list of high-risk areas includes the U.S. states of Florida, New York, Arizona, and Texas. Screening and health assessments are still mandatory for all incoming passengers. Jamaica's economy declined for the first time in 5 years between January and March this year. According to the Statistical Institute of Jamaica Statin, the economy shrunk by 2.3% when compared to the same period in 2019. Statin says the negative performance was impacted mainly by the spread of COVID-19. Jamaica's first case was recorded towards the end of the quarter on March 10. There was a 2.5% fall in the services industries, while the goods-producing industries contracted by nearly 2%. Meanwhile, the cost of goods and services went up slightly in April. According to Statin, inflation in April 2020 was 0.2%. Statin says the rate was impacted by the reduction in the GCT from 16.5% to 15%, which took effect on April 1. Food prices rose by 0.3%. Food and non-alcoholic beverages carry the most weight on the Consumer Price Index, which measures inflation. Housing and utility costs went up about 0.2%, and gas prices went down, resulting in a 0.5% fall in transportation costs overall. The Bank of Jamaica BOJ is maintaining its policy interest rate at 0.5% per annum. The BOJ says it still thinks that monetary conditions are appropriate to support inflation remaining within the target of 4 to 6% over the next 2 years. However, the central bank says the economic outlook remains highly uncertain. It says it will continue to assess new data and stands ready to implement other policy measures if the need arises. The BOJ's policy interest rate is the rate the bank offers to deposit-taking institutions on overnight placements. It's influential in determining the interest rates set by commercial banks. The next policy announcement will be made on August 18. And Group CEO of Stocks and Securities Limited SSL Zachary Harding and SSL's founder Hugh Croskery have formed a new private equity entity, Delta Capital Partners Limited, Delta Cap. A press release about the partnership says Delta Cap is a legally separate entity running parallel to SSL's brokerage and private wealth management business. The SSL boss says the new company will complement SSL by taking an active role in invested companies to help those businesses to scale and grow. Harding will serve as the executive chairman of Delta Cap while maintaining his role as group CEO of SSL. Former CFO and CIO at Sagicor Jamaica Group, Ivan Carter, is CEO. The Delta Cap board and management team also includes the Director of Economics at the Caribbean Development Bank, Dr. Justin Ram, Managing Partner of Lex Caribbean law firm Melanie Jones, and other members of the SSL group.
What's Hot was brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers, your best interest at heart. When we come back, with businesses flocking online, one tech company is helping businesses get paid. We'll discuss.
I'm Nigel Clark. Watch Taking Stock with Kalila Reynolds.
This segment of Taking Stock is brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agent. Insurance made easy. Welcome back to Taking Stock. Have you ever wanted to sell your products online and didn't know how you'd receive payment from your customer? Well, CEO of WePay Jamaica, Aldwyn Wayne, is here to help. He joins us. Hi, Aldwyn. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Claire. Thanks for having me.
So I heard you speak about a year ago in Porto, Spain, and I recently realized that you guys have also launched in Jamaica. How long have you been here now in Jamaica?
So we did a soft launch just about a year to essentially introduce our products to the market. However, we only have a few things operational. In Trinidad, the things you would have seen are stuff that's approved by the local regulators in Trinidad. In Jamaica, we are still waiting regulatory approval. We have submitted, to the BOJ, but we have not gotten, our final regulatory approvals on what we have submitted. So we are providing a limited service in Jamaica. The only thing that we can do at this point in time is the online aggregation for local processing.
The online what?
Aggregation.
Aggregation.
For local gateway providers, i.e. banks who process your payment online. Our gateway or our platform allows customers to get to that processing easier. So it's like instead of hiring a developer to integrate the bank's processing on your website, you could just use one of our plugins to integrate the processing on your website. So,
and that's a problem that we do have, because the bankers do offer it, but it's very expensive. I did an interview recently with one of the banks, and I realized, whoa, okay, so this is more like for the big guys. If you have an SME, it might not be as feasible to do. So tell me how your platform works.
Right. So just for clarity, that's the focus on the platform in Jamaica because of the regulatory approvals or lack thereof from us in terms of the other services that you could go on, Trinidad website and find, like a credit card or a wallet. We can't do any of those in Jamaica right at this point. But what we are doing with the platform is allowing a Jamaican to go online, register, and we give him the plugin that would connect him to the local bank's processing. So like a PayPal, like a Stripe, you could do all this online and have, the local bank process your payments into a local bank account without having to, go spend a bunch of money with a developer or a bunch of integration time with the banks.
I recently learned about Stripe too, because I wasn't aware of it. And now hearing that WePay offers a similar type of service, it's very useful, because the same issue that you have with the PayPal, most of us in the Caribbean, we are able to send payments via PayPal, but we can't receive payments via PayPal. So WePay solves that problem.
And on top of that, I mean, I had an interview last night where I was explaining to people, the challenges of cross-border acquiring. If I'm in Jamaica and I'm selling a good or service, I'm in Morrison Point. I know I pronounced that wrong, but I'm a Trini, so. Morrison Point, which is all the way to the end, and you're in Kingston and you want to make a payment and you want to use your local card to make that payment. Using a gateway that's based in the United States means the issuer of your card, whether it's NCB, Sagicor, JMMB, would have to convert that money from JMD
into
to US dollars to settle with PayPal. The guy that's in Morrison Point now has to have a US account to have that settled in. And that entire transaction affected the Jamaican money system because you just leaked foreign exchange out of your country. So payment processing outside of your jurisdiction, outside of your currency, is huge, or has a huge effect, or can have a huge effect on the actual economics of the country, because you depend on foreign exchange for a lot of trade. You need that money for other industries that may be more critical than me purchasing something from someone in Morrison Point. Mm-hmm. So having a local gateway and a local payment provider is critical for the growth of any country, as well as the need that is now upon us for moving businesses online, where the actual transaction volume is going to increase because more and more people are going to go online. You want to ensure that that increase in transaction, that increase in volume doesn't affect your country's ability to have foreign exchange.
So explain to me how this works then, Aldwyn, because I know you're a Trini and the system is up and running in Trinidad and Tobago as well. Okay. But you're saying that it's a local transaction. So this doesn't go through Trinidad and Tobago. This is completely based in Jamaica, and in each island that you set up, it's going to be based in the local country?
Yeah, right. So WePay Trinidad is independent in terms of operations from WePay Jamaica. So in Jamaica, WePay is partnered with a local bank that owns the actual transaction. So the processing of the payment on your website is actually going to be processed. Huh?
Which bank is that you partnered with?
So we work with NCB at this point for processing. So
okay.
The transaction is actually going to be processed through the NCB's processing. So the money stays in Jamaica, right? I'm in Trinidad, but the actual platform is in Jamaica, right? So you said you spoke with some of our local people there. The system connects you and your website, your customer that goes to your website to a processor in Jamaica and a bank in Jamaica. So we're just that software bridge that eliminates the need for the development of the connection that you normally go and hire developers to do.
So in each country that you set up service, this is going to be the case?
Has to be the case.
And how many countries are you in right now?
Guyana, Barbados, St. Lucia, Trinidad, Jamaica. We have Bahamas coming up. So that's what, 7?
It's a decent amount. When did you start?
3 years ago.
3 years ago and in 7 countries. So you're on a rapid growth trajectory.
Yeah, we need it in the Caribbean. I'm not trying to hop on the point with the foreign exchange, but in the southern part of the Caribbean, Trinidad, Barbados, that's a big problem for us, Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that, the limitations that's going to be put on credit card purchases doesn't limit, the growth of this industry. And the only how we could do that is to provide a solution based in that local country's currency, that industry can grow because the service that's being provided doesn't affect the foreign exchange of that country.
Mm-hmm. Now, having to convert to US would be a big problem for you in the Southern Caribbean, indeed, the countries that have a fixed exchange rate. So the Barbados, which is 2-1, Trinidad, 6-something to 1 US. It's also a problem here in Jamaica, though, even though we have that floating currency, the floating exchange rate, it's still, people would think it's a better solution to trade in Jamaican dollars because you lose when you have to convert the currency and then convert it back to Jamaican dollars.
Exactly.
But I want to hear some more about your journey as an entrepreneur and in launching WePay and achieving this level of expansion in the time that you have. What have been the hurdles that you've encountered so far? Because I imagine there have been many.
For me, the path of entrepreneurship, it came natural because I came from a business family. My dad started his own businesses and we grew those. So it was only natural that I, fell in line. WePay is my fourth company. I started with a cable company, an internet company, a software development company, and now WePay. So, it conditioned me. It had me ready for what the entrepreneurial environment was and is going to be. But still, I still had and we still have new hurdles that comes with this type of business. Things that we didn't understand, things that we had to learn on the fly, things that in an industry that's hyper regulated, like the payments industry, we had to learn quickly, how to conduct business in a way that doesn't have regulators worried. And being a fintech, being a software company first, it's always risk averse approach by the regulators to allow us to do business because our industry is new. It's not from that legacy financial industry that they're comfortable with. So those challenges, and having to overcome those and continue to learn how to overcome those challenges in this new hyper-regulated industry that we're in is something that I think was good for us. It helped us to grow the business because it was such a challenge to overcome.
What has been the situation in getting the company, the service regulated or getting over the regulatory hurdle? Because I know here in Jamaica, like you said, you're still awaiting approval. They recently launched a sandbox for companies. I imagine yours would be one that might qualify to participate in the sandbox.
We have an application in the sandbox, yes.
But what has that process been like in other countries in becoming operational?
It's pretty much the same. Like I said, this is a new space for the Caribbean, and from a regulator standpoint, they would take that risk averse approach, and we understand that it's new, and they should because they are regulating the payment space of a country, and you don't want to have someone or something come in and cause your country or your payments system to be at risk. That's huge problems. So we understand the time it takes for a regulator to fully understand what we're trying to do, and we understand the process that they put us through, because at the end of the day, they're the one that's ultimately responsible for the payment system in a country. So the steps that we have to take is pretty much the same across each island. It may seem long, Trinidad, some of the things took us a year, but it's required because the confidence that you need as a citizen to work with WePay comes from the approval of the regulator. So until we have all these things checked and approved by the regulator, we understand, it's going to be a waiting process and a waiting game, and it's okay by us.
I asked the question because I remember probably about 4 years ago, I did an interview with some local players who were entering the mobile money space, and they had big launch, well-known company too, and they started offering the service, and then BOJ came in, Bank of Jamaica, and said, whoa, 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 we need to see what this is. We need to regulate you, and basically mash brakes on the whole situation. And they were frustrated because they had made this investment and now they basically can't do anything with it.
Yeah, man. So that's why we won't launch a mobile wallet. We're not going to launch e-money. We're not going to do any of those things until we have BOJ's approval. We have a sandbox application. Until that application is approved and we have a non-objection to start.
But is it frustrating waiting on the approvals?
Like I said, 2 years ago, my answer would have been a quick yes. It's like, come on, guys, we need to do better. But I understand the resources that's available. I understand the space is rapidly changing, and people that is within that department for regulating fintechs, they themselves are still trying to get a clear understanding on some of these solutions, much less trying to regulate them. So it is a learning process. It is a waiting game. But like I said before, we now understand, and I understand why it's so important that they get it right the first time.
Have they given you an indication when the process might be, when you might hear an answer? So
when you submit to the sandbox, they do have stipulated timelines for responses and so forth. So they've put that within the application documents.
But you've been here a year and they just launched the sandbox, I think last month. I remember writing that story.
Yeah. So we only applied last month.
And you've only applied, so you're not even in the sandbox yet. Then you have to wait another period.
So we only applied last month. Yeah, definitely. Like I said, what we've been doing since the soft launch was to introduce the products by name to the market. It wasn't a launch or a go live with any product per se, right? The actual aggregating business only happened during COVID. So for the better part of the last year, we were dormant.
That's what brought my attention to you, actually, because I saw where you participated in the farmers market during COVID, because the farmers had this challenge in getting their produce. They didn't have the tourism market anymore, so they were trying to do these sales to the public. And I saw WePay was a part of that, where they were, I think it was a cashless farmers market is what it was called. And you were one of the platforms through which people could pay. Yeah,
we actually in Trinidad did a cashless grant where we used our technology to send QR codes to needy individuals that needed grant monies. And that QR code acted as a receipt that you could take to, certain locations and have it redeemed for goods and services. I think we did a presentation, or we provided a proposal to the recovery committee, and we got the opportunity to do, a digital receipt system that you would walk into the farmers market with your cash. You'll give the ministry the money, and they would give you a QR code that you could then go to any of the trucks and use to get eggs or melons. So the actual transaction within the farmers market was done using those digital QR codes. So that's what we did. That's the demonstration that we put forward with our technology, or one of our technologies, at the farmers market. A funny story. So we did that, and it had a couple other mobile wallets came as well. And because of the similarity in fintech, mobile, digital, we had a huge explanation group within the farmers market, explaining that what we're doing, you don't have to download an app, you don't have a mobile wallet. What we're doing is super simple. You could use your cash, convert, and move on. And it was something that was new to these people, because they understand mobile wallet. It's like, man, we don't want to download an app. We don't want to use my phone. I'm just here to get melons and eggs, and I came with cash. And once we explained to them, like, it's a very easy way to convert your wallet, your melons, your cash, to use it as essentially a digital receipt.
And I know that is going to be an increasing challenge for you as well in getting adoption here in Jamaica, and I imagine other parts of the Caribbean as well, because people, if you're already comfortable using one method, which is cash in this region is king. A lot of people aren't comfortable still using electronic means of payment. They're not comfortable doing even online banking. COVID has presented an opportunity for companies like yours and other banks as well to start to convince people to do it, but they're still been very slow to move. And there's also a fear that after all COVID is over, things pass, people will just go back to normal. What's the experience been like?
In Trinidad, that was the same question, the judiciary had. They had tons of customers that they wanted to move their court payments out of the courts and wanted to move it online. But how are you going to get a population of people who their only means of payment is cash, to use a digital service? And what we did was take what they were accustomed to. They were accustomed to converting cash digitally when they buy their phone top-up. When they buy their Flow or digital top-up, they go buy airtime credit. They take, $1,000 Jamaican, and they get 1,000 digital airtime. So they were familiar with that process. So what we did in Trinidad was build a solution that looked exactly the same. You go to your corner store and you ask for, $1,000 court pay instead of Flow or digital. Now you have this little chip in your hand that has 14 numbers that you can now go online and use it like a credit card. And that system has been so successful that during COVID, this was the only way, or the only state entity that was still processing payments when everything else was locked down, because you didn't have to go into a ministry, or you didn't have to go into the judiciary. You could have made your payments online. Your maintenance payments was simply as going to the corner store that was open up until 5 o'clock, the pharmacy, the gas station. So it took us 2 years, but now it's mainstream adopted, because it provided a much needed facility for those people. So in Jamaica, we would like to take that same approach. Find a solution or entity that needs this type of solution, but they need it on a national scale so that it could drive adoption like it did in Trinidad.
But you do have competition here in Jamaica. There are others that have, I guess, beaten you to the punch. I don't know if it's exactly the same type of service that you offer with WePay, but there are others who do similar types of things. Like you said, at the farmers market, there was some confusion about it, and there's been slow adoption for them too.
Okay, so here's the thing. We are not a mobile wallet. So when what's in the space, and I mean, it's fantastic products, but we're taking a slightly different approach. We don't want, our mission is not to take your money and put it into a digital space. That's a wallet. I don't think we see as Caribbean people the value in taking my cash, converting that cash into something digital, and could only use it at 10 locations. My cash is giving me access to everywhere.
Right.
Why would I want to convert it? So understanding that mindset, our mindset, Caribbean people's mindset, we decided to take a different approach and not do a mobile wallet holding your cash. We've decided, listen, let's partner with entities and give them the ability to make a payment online that is simple as going and buying a phone card top-up. So the only time I'm going to make a payment to company X is when I need to. I don't need to convert my money to cash, to digital cash in a wallet, and have to worry about not being able to spend it. I need to make an online payment now. I go to, I'm just calling a name, a corner store, like a Paymaster, one of those places, buy the top up then, and make the payment now, and that's it. I'm not putting it in a wallet. I'm not putting it on my phone. All I really want to do is make an online payment at that second. And I would convert my cash at that point in time for essentially a gift voucher for that particular business. And that's how we approach it. Now, this is something, again, we have sent to DOJ for approval. So it's not something that's going to be available until we have Bank of Jamaica approval. But that approach, we think, is more advantageous than telling a customer to open a wallet, put money in it, and use it. Save your money there, essentially.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's not where
I
we
wish
think,
you all the best with it, Aldwyn. I really do. I look forward to what the future holds.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, bye. When we come back, I've got your market recap, and the analysts are standing by. This segment of Taking Stock was brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency. Insurance made easy. So this is Craig Harley, photographer extraordinaire. Yes. So Craig, you started investing how long ago?
I started investing 2 years ago.
2 years, and you started with just $2,000.
$2,000.
Do you mind sharing what your portfolio is worth now?
Before COVID, it valued $500,000.
Wow.
When I checked it like 2 days ago and checked everything, at 300 and something thousand.
Yeah, so it would have fallen because everything fell
With
during COVID.
Everything would have fell.
But how you feel nervous because it fell, or you feel like it's gonna bounce back?
Actually no, because persons asked me if I'm nervous about it, and I said no, I'm not. I'm actually legit not going to watch it right now because I didn't have any time, because I had to focus on how to manage my business during COVID, because it's my first time experiencing something like this.
Right.
But then after a while, that didn't stop me from listening to business news, didn't stop me from listening to what's going on Twitter, and didn't stop me from hearing what's going on with companies that I invested in.
Yeah.
So I took the time, and then I started putting together stuff to start look at my portfolio to see what needs to sell, what needs to increase, what I need to hold, and those stuff.
So tell me, you told me earlier that you started investing because you saw your parents invest in Carib cement and stuff. But when did you really start taking it seriously?
I started taking it seriously after shooting the BTS photos for your pilot program.
For Taking Stock.
I was listening very keenly, and then I had a meeting with what's his name again? Brooks?
Dennis?
No, the young guy, the young investor.
David Rose.
David Rose, yes, David Rose. And I had a meeting with him right after that, and he kind of dived down into it a little bit more, and then ever since then I make sure I watch your videos to see what's going on, learn a little more, read a lot more, and it just made it easier for me to trade and to understand the stock market from a different perspective.
Wicked. Thanks, Craig.
No problem.
Time now for your market recap, brought to you by Sagicor Investments. Think wealth, think Sagicor Investments. The Jamaica Stock Exchange declined last week with the combined index falling 0.5%. 94 stocks traded across both the main and junior markets of the JSE for the week ending Friday, July 3, 2020. 35 advanced, 50 declined, and 9 stayed the same. Nearly 208 million shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, totaling $1 billion. Maybury Jamaican equities traded the most, taking up 24% of market volume. However, the stock lost 39 cents to open the week at $9.40. Pulse Investments traded the second most, with people buying and selling nearly 29 million shares in the company. Pulse also made it to the top of last week's biggest gains, up 24% to close at $3.67. And Devrhoid was also among the most traded, taking up nearly 12% of market volume. The stock lost 5 cents to close last week at $2.18. Now let's see who else had the biggest gains. Mailpack Group rose 22% to close last week at $2.37, and Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances is up 17% to close last week at $13.72. On the losing side now, Lasco Manufacturing fell 19% to close last week at $3.20. Jetcon Corporation fell 15% to end last week at 93 cents a share. And Productive Business Solutions USD ordinary shares lost 13%, down to US 55 cents. Now here's a quick look at some of the highlights for the month of June. The main index was flat, gaining only 0.03%, while the junior market fell by 1.5%. The financial index also lost 1%. Pulse was the most traded stock in June, with 380 million shares changing hands. Palace Amusement regained 64% of its stock price, climbing back up $1,850. The lab also had big gains, back up 42%, and Iron Rock Insurance lost the most, down 22%. Market Recap was brought to you by Sagicor Investments. Think wealth, think Sagicor Investments.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, is brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers and Proven Wealth. Welcome back to Taking Stock. I've got a team of analysts to examine the week in business. I'm joined by investment analyst at Proven Wealth, Julian Morrison, and co-founder of Caribbean Value Investor. He's also host of Beyond the Stock Price on YouTube, Devrhoid Davis. Later on, we'll be joined by Theodore Mitchell from JMMB as well. Good to have you guys, Devrhoid, Julian, always a pleasure. Theodore will be joining us a little bit later. So some excitement on the market this week. Let's start with Pulse. I noticed lots of people are suddenly paying attention to Pulse when perhaps 2 months ago would have been a good time to really pay attention to Pulse, the market finally catching on. What's going on with Pulse, Devrhoid?
All right, so as you said earlier, I think most of what we're seeing with Pulse now is a reaction to really some of the things that Pulse has been doing over the past few months. I would say going back as far as November, we saw in their annual report they stated that they were starting to place a little bit more emphasis on their real estate holdings, starting with that 68 unit villa. We also see where they've mentioned some strategic alliances which are about to come into play. I think they're doing one deal with an international company as well. So I'm thinking that the market really is just starting to understand that, okay, Pulse really is one for the long haul, and is one that will continue to be a good investment if you consider where it's coming from, pre-split, and where it could potentially go.
Julian, what make you of it? Do you think people who are rushing Pulse now are late, or is it still a good time to get in?
There still could be some room to run just from a theoretical standpoint. If you look at the metrics in terms of where the price is, the PE is still fairly low relative to where the market is at. So on that basis, there still could be some space. It's a stock that is closely watched by some, so it has its crowd, and on that basis, people could take advantage again at a later stage. It's a company with reasonable fundamentals if you understand it. So why not? In my opinion, though, I think most of the value is in the long term. That's my view on it.
Okay, so we welcome.
And I agree.
You agree with that, Devrhoid?
Yes, I do.
Good. So we welcome now Theodore Mitchell. Theodore, you haven't missed much. We just started. We were talking about Pulse. So I noticed a lot of activity on the market with people flocking to Pulse this particular week. I was asking Devrhoid and Julian if they think it's too late to jump on the Pulse bandwagon now. What do you think?
I share that sentiment. Our outlook on it's not a stock which we really cover, but in terms of assessing it, I think it is that the price multiples are relatively high, and maybe at this price point, it's not the best at which to enter.
Okay, where is it now, Devrhoid?
It traded at around $4, but it's actually falling below. The last time we looked at it had actually fallen below $4. On Friday, it actually went 15% below the close price on Thursday of last week. So that triggered the circuit breaker rule.
And the stock split had taken it to 3, right?
Right.
Okay. So I noticed too that you were mentioning before we started recording, Devrhoid, that a lot of the attention has shifted to mail pack. Why is that?
So in terms of mail pack, they posted strong results at the end of for the May reporting period. So, for the quarter ending March, that was reported in May. So the results were really well. The net profits were around $101 million. And then subsequently, this is Thursday of last week, they actually posted that they will be paying a 4-cent dividend. Now that amounts to around 2%. It's actually 1.97% of where the close price was on the day. So I'm assuming that being that the dividend was so generous, a lot of persons will be inclined to kind of pay some attention to the stock, and we have seen volume starting to pick up. We've seen the price jump 17% the day after too, so that's telling.
So another bit of news that came out is the announcement that cinemas are going to be allowed to reopen. So Palace Amusement is coming, and they said they're going to be reopening on Wednesday after losing a whole heap of money. Julian, have you been following Palace Amusement? It wasn't looking good for them over the past few months.
Well, Palace. So I think that Palace's situation is one that requires a very keen eye from a managerial standpoint, because there are a lot of moving parts. When we looked at how the COVID-19 outbreak would have impacted that business, it's significant. Virtually, most of their clientele would be unable to support the business. So it came to a screeching halt. And before COVID-19, the business had more room to grow in terms of having the amount of uptake or cinema capacity being filled. So it means that it would have been nice if they had a greater volume of clientele, and that was the case before. So essentially, it's a bad situation that has gotten worse. So their turnaround story would be something that requires a medium to long-term approach. I saw an article where they're actually raising debt capital, so they're approaching banks. But in my view, it would be good if they change their capital, maybe if they looked at raising equity and using that equity financing to retool their operations so they can attract more visitors and start to turn around the business.
So 300 million in losses is the amount that they had reported as a result of the lockdowns. They had to be completely shut down all their locations for 3 months. And Julian, you were saying that you think there was room for growth pre-COVID. But Theodore, I want to hear your thoughts on that, because the movie industry is one that has been impacted by the emergence of Netflix and other similar streaming services. Are people still going to the movies as much?
The movie industry across the world is undergoing structural change, and as you rightfully say, Netflix and other streaming entities are having a negative impact in terms of theater going. So it is that reckon that it would be the same for Jamaica in coming years. So unlike Julian, I do not share the view that necessarily that the growth outlook for Palace is rather positive in light of what is happening given the multiple streaming networks which are available. Another thing which I like to put out there as well is with respect to the income level of Jamaica, it is relatively low. And I think it is that with what is happening, despite relative increase in employment and so on, persons are prioritizing, and theater going is pretty expensive. So in terms of increased movie going in the future in light of what is happening, I don't necessarily see that. So Palace would necessarily have to restructure its operation, or it is that it try and entice visit moviegoers, etc., in terms of to grow its revenue over time.
Devrhoid, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on Palace are. So we have two opposing views. Maybe you could be the tiebreaker.
So my perspective on it is somewhat different from that of Mr. Mitchell. I would actually be more in agreement with Julian. If you just look at some of the moves that Palace Amusements has been planning, they've already made plans to open another location in Portmore, and also recently they had announced plans also to open another cinema in Clarendon at the recently built Sagicor Park right across from Mineralite. Now, that is telling that the company would have at least done some amount of market analysis to kind of vet whether or not such a move would be a prudent one. We had seen in the past where there were significant increases in Palace's earnings, and that had resulted in the share price moving up to around $2,400 per share. Right now, it has come back down significantly to around half or probably 75% of that. I think that Jamaicans with our history of actually attending movies, for us, it's not really just a leisure activity, but it is it's a traditional and a cultural thing. So I don't think that Palace Amusements is going to see a majority fall off going forward once we're out of this COVID situation. Another thing that I will mention, whilst I do see some amount of migration towards the streaming services, we have to look at the fact that really in terms of Jamaica's spending, the amount that we spend online in terms of using like credit cards and so with these paid streaming services is not really at such a high level that it is damaging to Palace's revenue. And we can look at historical context for that. But my perspective is that Palace Amusement still remains one to watch going forward.
But that's still a big hole that they're going to have to dig themselves out of. It's going to take a while before you see a recovery.
I agree. And so I would be looking at a 3 to 5 year time horizon on an investment in Palace, not a near-term one.
I see. So, Julian...
There was also talk of the idea of them looking into a drive-in theater.
Yes.
I don't know the mechanics of it, but that could possibly be an idea of restructuring. So,
and are you old enough to remember Palace Old Drive-In Theater?
Yeah, I watched Mission Impossible on it.
Oh, you
I
did?
went with my family, yeah.
What was it like? I wasn't living in Jamaica at the time.
Well, I can say, that was many years ago, but I can say that it's a very different experience. It's very different from being indoors, and it could also be more in line with the regulations of us regarding us gathering, because it's an outdoor setting and it would allow people to actually be at a greater distance from each other as opposed to a typical movie setting, movie theater setting. So it's something to consider, but I'm not an expert in the area. It's just something tangible that they can look into.
You think there's appetite for a drive-in type of setting?
I believe
Theodore?
so. Based on what I'm seeing, I think so.
Let me ask Theodore, because, well, I can say I'm an avid moviegoer. I love going to the movies. I write movie reviews. I really enjoy the environment, even though I also have Netflix at home.
Okay.
But the thing about the drive-in, I wonder if the investment would be worth it, because I have a feeling that after COVID is over, even now, people aren't even adhering to the social distancing requirements as much. And I feel like it's just going to be back to how we used to be pretty soon, even though we're not supposed to do that.
That's a valid point.
Let me hear Theodore. Yeah.
I'm saying that's a valid point. If you may recall, there was a shift away from, persons utilizing that means of watching movies. Currently, of course, with COVID, being prevalent, it is something. It is you more or less find persons may want to have a need to go to the the movie, at least the drive-through. But post-COVID, I don't necessarily see where it is that individuals will want to go to the drive-in. So from an investment perspective, it may not necessarily be prudent unless it is that the infrastructure is already there and it's easy to retrofit the venue without a significant capital cost.
Then again, we're assuming that there is a post-COVID.
I agree with Theodore on that still. I agree with him on that.
I agree as well. I do have a sort of slightly different perspective as it relates to the cost that Palace Amusements could incur in trying to implement the whole drive-in cinema. But it's not something that I would delve into because I don't know the full mechanics of how they plan to implement it. What I can say is that based on the releases that we've seen from the company, and this was an article published in the Jamaica Observer, the management did sort of come to the same conclusion that Mr. Mitchell has aired just now, in that they are questioning the prudence with which they could actually implement that, considering the cost that they might face.
Mm-hmm. Thank you guys for joining me. All the best.
All right, thank you, Khalil.
Thanks, Khalil.
Bye.
Thanks.
Let's take our final break and we'll have that giveaway coming up. This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, was brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers and Proven Wealth. That's almost our show for this week. Thanks for watching. I still have that giveaway, but first make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and of course share with a friend. And guys, the new newsletter is now out, so go to takingstock-ja.com to subscribe. Also turn on those post notifications so that you can be the first to see all my other features. The goal is to get to 50,000 subscribers this year. We want to help people learn more about money so we can all get this money together. Now this week on Money Mondays JA, we're breaking down a recent court ruling about AGMs and what impact it will have on you as a shareholder. And on Money Moves JA with Exim Bank, we get more advice from our expert about building your own website. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Khalila Ray, and follow at Taking Stock JA on Instagram. If you want to connect with the analysts this week, check the description box below for their contact information. All right, so now it's time for the giveaway. Are you ready? Last week on Taking Stock, Chairman of the Entertainment Advisory Board in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Howard McIntosh, he gave an updated estimate for the amount of losses to the entertainment industry as a result of the lockdowns up to the end of June. What was that estimate? Leave your answer in the comments below. The winner will be chosen at random between the premiere and Friday. You can be one of the first to have the exclusive Let's Get This Money t-shirt before they go on sale. So tell a friend about Taking Stock, because investing is the new sexy. So let's make it cool to talk about money. I'm Khalila Reynolds. Stay safe.